Welcome, impactful parents. Today, we're going to talk about how to help your teen explore college and careers without piling on the pressure. Hello, my name is Christina Campos. I'm founder of The Impactful Parent, and I help parents of school age children who want to be one step ahead of their kids to turn their chaos into connection with their adolescent. I'm a mom of 4 kids, a teacher that's taught every grade from preschool through high school. And today I help moms and dads like yourself to navigate that exhausting, confusing, frustrating, but rewarding world of parenting. So, welcome to The Impactful Parent. And today we have a special guest. His name is Sam Bernstein. And Sam is the co founder of Loper, a free app that helps students explore options for their continuing their education after high school in a personalized and more engaging way. And Sam's mission is to give students the tools and confidence to make informed decisions about their future without the pressure having so much on them or the prestige of outdated planning methods. His work at Loper has already helped over 200,000 students toward educational and career paths that match their interests and their goals. So I'm happy to have Sam on the Impactful Parent stage today to talk about preparing our kids for after graduation. Welcome to the stage, Sam.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the intro, and thanks so much for having me, Christina. Really looking forward to the conversation.
I'm excited to talk about this too, as I have a freshman in high school along with my other 3 children, but I have a freshman in high school, and I know that it's been, I don't want to say it's a battle because he's a pretty driven kid, but it's definitely been something on top of our mind. And I have so many questions for you. But let's start with, when should parents start talking to their children about college and career exploration?
Well, I love you. You teed me up well there with the current freshman in high school. And I've got to say, fun age, but certainly very empathetic for the years ahead and the stress. And if he's your oldest, just going through that process for the first time as a parent, I think is really daunting. And the direct answer to that question is, I do think you want to start talking about it freshman year, but how you approach that conversation is very important as a parent, very, very important for your student, because it's really easy to implicitly send that message of, by the way, 4 years from now is the biggest decision of your life. Nope, you're no pressure, but there's a lot of pressure on you. And all of a sudden have your, 14-year-old, 13, 14, 15-year-old just feeling like the weight of the world's on top of them. And so I do think it's important to start that conversation when they enter high school, but I don't think the conversation is starting with, okay, here are all the things you need to do, and here's a playbook, and here's what it is. I think it's, hey, by the way, there's this really exciting and awesome goal that you're working towards, and really just take care of business right now. Focus on your grades, make friends, get involved, follow what you're interested in. But we're going to want to make sure that we have touch points because there is this goal and milestone that we're working towards. I don't think that conversation really needs to accelerate until kind of this time. If you're a sophomore parent right now, the summer between sophomore and junior year is where I think I'd start to get more intentional. But having that touch point and making more of an open conversation, because the other piece is, if you don't start this conversation with your student, one way or another, the conversation starts in high school. And I think usually it's the least productive ways, where it's, hey, it's this US News and World Report rankings list, and there's only 20 schools that matter. And there's the one kid in the class that starts talking about college, and your child thinks they need to be thinking about college. So starting that conversation, letting them know the dialogue's there, but not making it so pressure packed from the start of freshman year, I think is so important.
I feel like I started this conversation with my kids about their 8th grade year. And then, as me personally, as a parent,
Yeah.
and then I didn't have any pressure on them. It was just kind of like planting seeds and doing some things that I thought would be necessary for their future. For example, community service. Like, I
Yeah.
figured, would no matter what they need, either high school needs it or it's a good person thing to do anyway. And they might want to start building community service hours for, college admissions and to look good on a resume and blah, 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 blah. Right. So I kind of like started in the middle school years, say, hey, this is a conversation about what we're having for later. It seems so far away to a middle school kid. And so you can't talk seriously really about it.
And no, and I like the framing that you have there on, like, there's If you make it just about college when you start that conversation with your middle schooler, it's way over their head. Then they're feeling stressed, they're confused. And I think sometimes you get the, I almost want to call it scare tactics here that come from, by the way, starting age 5, whatever your kid's in, it's going to paint this mosaic and this picture of them for admissions. We can definitely get into kind of dispelling some of those myths later, but getting them involved and trying to figure out their own passions, because for your middle school, when with your middle schooler, they may love what they get involved with in community service, and whether that's relevant for college or not, that's important. And I think sometimes people lose sight of your college application, and the admissions process should be a reflection of your involvements, your passions, who you are as a person. And that can happen organically with or without the context of college. And I would argue is really productive and positive aspect of parenting, kind of bringing out the best in your child and pushing those pieces out. And they should just naturally fit in many ways to the
I
college planning
love
side.
that so much. Everything you're saying there, I just love that so much. And I want to warn parents too. The reason I love this conversation that we're having is there are different kinds of kids that are going to receive this actually, all the conversations you have about their future in different ways. You could have a child that's going to be just like so receptive and like obviously really excited for their future. You're going to have other kids that, of course, reject it. But the one kid I want to point out that a lot of parents don't realize that they might have is this kid really excited for their future, but they take mom and dad's suggestions as criticism. So it's like this, it's really important to come at this conversation in such a way that as a parent, we don't think that we're criticizing our kids. We're just saying, hey, you need to do this and you need to do that. But what a teenager's brain thinks is, I'm lacking in those areas. Everything that they just said, I'm lacking in that area now. And I need to somehow fix it, or I have a deficit of somehow. So, and I just want to make parents aware as we're talking about all these great ways to start this conversation. If you have that sensitive kid, just to be top of mind that, yeah, this is actually really important, and how you navigate it is going to be really, really important for us to do as parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And the piece, not to, flip this and jump to the back end of the process, but I think sometimes a question that illustrates what you just brought up is that question of, how are college applications going? I think for so many students, they hear from a parent, how are college applications going? And it's, I should be doing something. And it's nothing that you said. And I think it's sometimes difficult for adults to move themselves back and put them in a teenager's brain, even if you're a parent of a teenager, but that's what's being heard. And that's I think where the pressure compounds. So but you're totally right on, that happens at the front end. Teens are reading far, far too much into what parents are saying. And it can be a little bit of a tightrope. And the only, honestly, the piece that I might adjust is I think parents won't always think about their child as sensitive. I really think it's most teens hear that just because of how much is built into this process, whether from parents, from schools, from friends, whoever it is.
So, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see parents making when they start the college and career conversations?
I think the biggest mistake that parents make without realizing it is thinking that there's really only 50 or 75 schools that matter, and they know that there are more colleges out there, but they start with such a narrow scope. And it's kind of like, oh, and it's because everyone kind of knows, you've seen Ivy League schools, play stereotypes, Harvard, maybe your big D1 schools from sports, your flagship state public institution, the couple local colleges around you, maybe where you went, and you kind of just think those are what's out there. And without realizing it, you've really narrowed the universe. You probably, as most parents, if you start to go through this process, you realize, wow, things have changed a lot since 20, 30 years ago. Acceptance rates are different. And you may have just set your child up to think really the only schools that are worth their time and worth them going to have sub 25% acceptance rate, which reality can be much lower than that, depending on how small the school is, how many of those are athletes, and so on, or, 3 or 4 different institutions, and that's where they should look. And I think when you start that conversation with a more narrow lens, and it can happen very naturally, because it's not from, I think, you know, poor intention so much as just lack of information or lack of context from parents. So I wouldn't start with that list and narrow it down. Really want to think about starting with introspection and what your students interested in. And then I think the second big mistake outside of really starting with too narrow of a list is incidentally putting too much enthusiasm of your own into the process. And that's, I think, where that can very naturally come out is on a college visit or starting to plan out college visits. And this is another one that I don't think is bad intention from a parent, but I will, rewind the clock for myself 10 years as a teenage boy, with probably every single trope about teenage boys being true in one way or for another for me. I went on a college visit with my mom. I actually remember it went to Princeton, didn't end up applying to Princeton. My mom said she loved it, favorite school ever. I already didn't really like it on the tour. Man, I hated it after she said that. And that's the kind of extreme stereotypical example there. But I would just be cautious about too quickly or too heavily, because it's an exciting time for parents too, but getting too out in front of your opinions in the process, just because that can end up totally coloring to kind of the sensitive piece that we talked about before, totally coloring your teens' opinions. And I see so often where then that causes tension, because sometimes the parent's actually right. Like, wow, this is a great school and you're excited and you showed it. And now all of a sudden you got to spend 12 months fighting with your child just because they don't want to do what mom or dad says and they want to make the decision themselves. And, as a parent, you weren't trying to make the decision, you're just trying to help. So I think that's one, is the narrowing too much. And then two is incidentally almost getting your opinion too far out in front of the process.
Oh, I can't agree with you more, and I think we have to remember, because we do get so excited as parents. I have 2 in college already, so, actually, they're getting ready to graduate, but
Wow.
during that process, it's really exciting, and I think we can get ahead of ourselves so easily. But teenagers naturally wanna be independent. At this point of their life, they wanna make all of their choices. They wanna direct all of their future, and if we stand in the way of that, even if we're like, we know that this is the best school for them, they will either rebel against it, or if something happens at that school in the next 4 years, guess whose fault it is? Because now we were the parent who encouraged them to go there, and so now it's
Yeah.
our fault somehow.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'm just gonna say, parents, watch out for that, because it is definitely a real hole that you can dig for yourself, and it's such good intentions, like, we don't mean to do it at all. Yeah, I would definitely, advise parents, like, when you go visit a school, come back and don't say anything about that school. You start asking them questions immediately. "Well, what did you think? What was the best thing you liked about it? What did you not like about it?" And then wait for them to ask you, "What did you think?" before you even say anything. I mean, that's hard. It's tough, but it is a real thing I would have parents do. Now, I wanna ask you another question about career paths, because how can parents expose kids to different options of career path out there that is not the norm? And what I mean by the norm is that from the time that our kids are really little, we encourage them to do the same 15 professions that we obviously see over and over and over again. And for whatever reason, we don't see anything else beyond that. And what I mean by it's either the family business is somehow, okay, so whatever your mom and dad do, but then it's doctor, lawyer, teacher. It's like it's the same professions over and over and over again. And there is so much more out there besides being a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher.
Yeah.
So, how do we get out of the little tiny square box of regular professions and get our kids to see way beyond that? When even as adults, sometimes it's hard for us to do that.
It is. No, it's a good point. And, it's funny you mentioned, you have kids that are getting ready to graduate college, because I think you fall into that same trap again as a college student, where you look around and it's like, all my friends, and it happens a lot at schools, all my friends are recruiting into the same job and I don't really know what it is. I'm going to do it. So it almost happens at multiple stages in life. And this is one where, first I'd say I don't think there's going to be a silver bullet that's going to work for everyone here. I think, I as I think about Loper and our product, over time, we really want to continue to do better, not just with sort of college exposure and college discovery, but exposing to more careers as well, and career paths, and helping students in this stress-free way see, oh, there's a lot out there. And maybe there's something that does interest me and I want to dive a little bit deeper on it. But I'd say one exercise that I encourage, and depending on the age of the student and parents' involvement, I think either person leading this can be helpful, but almost think about a personal CRM or personal Rolodex where build that Google sheet or the Excel sheet and actually start listing out, and you can do it for friends or parents of other students in your child's school or child's grade, and actually start forcing yourself to see, like, what is their profession, where do they work, what is their profession. And I think what will surprise you is that all of a sudden it might be, oh, I don't actually know exactly what this parent does if they aren't a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor. But it gives an opportunity for your kid to lead that conversation, especially if it's a parent of a friend, and actually just have a 5-minute conversation. Where do you work? What do you do? And the more of those conversations, because I think what's fun about this is you want to have, before you turn to Google or you turn to Chat GPT or whatever you're using to, I'd say, ideate and brainstorm and see more of what's out there. I think it's fun when there's something that's like, oh, this actually sounds interesting to me. And it might take 5 or 6 of those conversations, because when you have something that sounds interesting, it's a lot easier to start finding comparable jobs. It's almost like a spider web out there. And that's why I think it's really tough to just show a student a list of occupations and careers out there, because it just means nothing. And it's like hard to hook yourself to anything. And then you fall back on those same 15. So I really would, and this is one that's actually, I think, a good exercise almost at any point in high school, is just to have that little, hey, go try, and in the next couple weeks, the next month, have 5 to 10 conversations and see where they go. Make them 3 minutes. Like, and if your child doesn't know how to approach it, which is totally reasonable, do the little mock conversation with yourself of, hey, pretend that I'm your friend's parent, or what are the questions you want to ask? And I really only think it needs to be 3 or 4 questions, because you just want them to hook to something where they then have, oh, this sounded really interesting for this reason. Let me go see what else out there might be similar, or if I have this interest, might be relevant for me.
I'm doing this. That's all I'm
It's
gonna say. I am totally doing this. And it's so simple. And I don't know why I didn't think about it myself. So for my high schooler that I currently have, super smart, great kid, really excited about college, but he's falling into the traditional 15. And I was trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? That's why I'm asking even the question for
yeah,
you today. Um, and I'm so going to do that because it's so simple. I think I'll make it a game. I'm going to say, we're the next month or maybe throughout the summer, everyone we meet or see, we're going to ask them, what do you do? What is the your favorite thing about your job? And what's the worst thing about your job? And would you recommend your job? And
yeah,
I think just in general, if you ask everybody in your family at whatever the next holiday is, you know, every the random people at the grocery stores, whatever, not only are we going to be building that Rolodex of just your brain exploding from all the different kinds of professions that people have out there, but I also think that this is going to give some really good public speaking, entrepreneur, networking skills that my teenager needs anyway right now. And in the beginning, I'll probably have to do a lot of hand holding as I'm trying to explain this. This is exactly how, as a
yeah,
parent, I would do this. And I want parents to hopefully follow suit too. Yes, I'm going to be hand holding in the beginning. Yes, I'm probably going to be the one going up to the person and saying, hey, we're kind of exploring different people or different professions right now. Can you tell me, what is it that you do? And I might have to do the first 5 on my own with my child just standing there quiet right next to me until he's comfortable talking to strangers and asking these questions. But after the first 5, I think I can get him to start doing stuff on his own. He's gonna see that I didn't explode when the stranger talked to me.
yeah,
Like, and I think that's it. We have to role model what we want for our kids a lot of times, and role model it more than once in a very scary, intimidating situation like talking to a stranger.
yeah,
And I think that's okay, parents. I think that's definitely okay. Now, do you wanna do it more than 10 times? Maybe not, but, 5 is really okay. It doesn't have to be 1. It could be doesn't have to be 2. 5 is fine. Show them what you want them
yeah.
to do, and then after 5, hopefully, he'll have the confidence to do it on his own.
So I think being able, those early conversations, but also being able to have access to the list. And, if you're tracking a Google Sheet, I don't think it has to be anything crazy, because you may go look back, and if your child's added a few in there, it might spark something in your head of like, oh yeah, this, I know blank who does this. And you said it's really interesting. And I really think the ability to ask questions and just get excited about something is really all that a student needs to be thinking about in terms of career at this stage.
I want to get into high school and what we should be doing at each grade level. So we talked a little bit about if you're a freshman or you're a sophomore, what should we be doing right now as a parent without taking over, because we want them to stay in control. They want to have a lot of say in their life. And if we as parents overshadow this, we're going to get the pushback. So, but what are we doing? What are we trying to push them to get done freshman and sophomore year?
Yeah. One thing I will just say is a book came to mind that I really like here. It's written by Jack Steinberg and Eric Furta, called A College Conversation. It's a little parent's companion guide for the college process. I think they have a lot of very good hands-on exercises. So just bringing that one up as it came to mind with your ninth and 10th graders. But in terms of what should they be doing? Ninth grade, grades. Turns out, actually, all you should really be worried about is school more than anything else. I'd say, in terms of that resume and activity beyond that, I would worry less about, hey, is my child building up to become the expert or the very best at one thing? Look, some people are going to have kids who are really involved in sports. That's great. Keep them going in sports. I wouldn't give up those other activities for the sake of grades. But, first and foremost, you want to be taking care of business and adjusting to high school. And I'd really say just encourage them. And it comes back to the last question on try things out. Give it the 3 or 4 tries here. You don't have to commit to it to high school. Just because you start something freshman year doesn't mean that college expects you to do it all 4 years. Guess what? They're probably not going to hear about it if you quit after freshman year. So don't even worry about it. And hey, you don't have to find what you were involved in senior year doesn't have to start freshman year. It can start sophomore, or even junior year as well. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about, hey, it has to be you're in it for all 4 years here in terms of activity, but just get them involved, because I do think that sometimes you will take that great advice overboard and say, okay, it's just about getting all straight A's and being top of my class there. Unfortunately, I don't think that is always, especially in the highly selective admissions world, what schools are looking for. And I think it's really as you transition to sophomore grade that you want to start having the conversation, because now ideally they've adjusted to high school, they've got their friend group, they've gotten over, like, don't lose sight of that big transition that's happening and going to middle school to high school. Like, that's just a lot of change. So I don't think you want to layer on that change, college, 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 and get more change messaging to them. I think as you get to sophomore year, that's where it's starting to plan of, okay, now hopefully you've built that structure where you're focused on grades, where grades still the number one most important thing. Take care of business, study, check all of those boxes. And I think colleges will have a lot more leniency on freshman year grades as long as you're showing improvement. Sophomore years, I think, where you really want to show that you've hit your own cadence and you're preparing yourself well. But as I think about over the course of sophomore year, it's starting to build up to what's probably going to culminate in maybe not the first serious conversation about college, but one of the first very intentional ones around, okay, what do the next 18 months look like? Because by the end of sophomore year, that's what we're talking about is 18 months until college applications. And I don't think you need to have by the end of sophomore year, hey, here's our month by month playbook. But being able to get out in front so you're not on the back foot the next couple years is really important. So it's almost freshman year to recap what may have been a little bit of rambling from me there. Freshman year, focus on grades, think about involvement, just encourage exploration. Sophomore year, thinking about really starting to refine and hopefully building up towards consistency over the next 2 to 3 years. And I think that can also help too approaching freshman year, where it's, hey, by the way, explore, do whatever you want. Next year, when we get to sophomore year, that's where we're not thinking about, hey, join for 3 or 4 meetings, join for 2 or 3 years and having a little bit more follow through and commitment. Yeah.
I hear you saying that in freshman year, we're getting them settled in, motivated to be good students in high school, basically transitioning them so that they're successful. But
Yep.
sophomore year, I hear you saying we're going to try to get them to hit a stride. They're going to
Yeah.
start leaning into the clubs they like, the activities they like, and hopefully the grades are still going to continue. So now what's going on junior year?
Junior year is that what I'll say first is going to go on junior year is at most high schools, you're going to get that fun college or career parent night. Sometimes, sometimes it'll be right at the start of the year. They might do two. It's like start of the year, they're going to sit down and say, hey, junior year is where things are about to get real here, parents, lock in students. And so instantly the school is going to put a little bit more pressure on the student as well. Maybe you took an AP test sophomore year, but this is probably where you start to think about, oh, I might be taking AP exams. I'm taking the SAT. I'm taking the ACT. These real tangible milestones start to happen. And you're also going to see seniors who maybe as a sophomore, you might have friends who are seniors, maybe you're playing sports teams, older siblings. But junior year, you're going to see seniors who are going through this process. And I think you get a lot of juniors start being like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. This is panic, panic, panic. So that's where I think junior, you want to build up where it's, hey, you're going to actually start to have real milestones here. This is where I would start thinking about, let's lay out the scope of the process. And it's one thing we're really excited about building at Loper is an application center and a parent's companion to their students' exploration, where you can see that stereotypical Google sheet that you may be putting together, that Google Calendar. We want to help auto generate that. So then you have a starting point to then edit it from there. And that's where I really think about, okay, let's lay these out. Let's do our planning. Let's make this a little bit more concrete. Maybe you went on some college visits between sophomore and junior year, stereotypical time, junior spring break, Easter break, whatever you have. That's classic college visit time. You want to start getting out in front of that. You want to be booking flights 2 weeks before. So I really think that having it doesn't have to be full 18 months, but at least kind of the next 6 months, have something where there's building blocks. I think when you visualize it as well, start to realize there's only so many check boxes there, and it really is one thing a month, one or two things a month until you get to fall of senior year. And that I think can sometimes de-stress this, because now it doesn't feel like this 18-month process that is pressure packed throughout. It's just like, okay, check the box, keep hitting the milestones. That stride that we hope you found sophomore year, you're just continuing to lean in. You don't need to sprint all 18 months. You can't sprint a marathon. Just take it step by step.
Mhm. And so junior year, we're going to be taking those AP tests. We're going to start really going down that checklist of what do we need to get done. And then where do we actually, we also want to visit schools. I did want to
Yeah.
say that because that one was important to my college kids too. Even the ones, I have one that went out of state and one that stayed local. But we went all over,
And one
so
thing I'd even encourage for parents is, especially if you start looking, you're like, wait, my kid wants to visit 8 different states, all these schools. What are we doing here? Have them visit one or two colleges that are closer to you, even if they say they don't want to apply.
Mhm.
Just get on a college campus, see what it's like, because you may really quickly realize, wait, I don't like these 2 or 3 things at all. And go back and look at those 8 different schools you thought you were visiting and be able to knock a few off right away.
Yeah.
So I always encourage that. I think it's one of the things that people overlook the most in the process. Just go to your local school, even if it's half an hour on campus. Go when students are in session. Just check it out, because it's going to inform other places, even if your kid has no interest in that specific school.
And then when does the application process happen?
Yeah. So, the Common App, which for any parents that don't know, most schools you can apply to through the Common App. You'll have different state specific application portals, like the UC system is a big one that has their own portal. But the Common App opens, ooh, I might miss this, August 1st, I believe. I know it opens over the summer. It could be July 1st, which is
Of
funny
their
that I don't
senior
have the
year.
state of their senior year. Yeah. So it's going to open over the summer. And what I'd really say is, it's the month leading in, the final month of junior year is really where I'd start to think about application season starting, even if you're
Mm.
not hitting submit until December of your senior year. And that's because you need things like a counselor recommendation, which your counselor will give, but you need 2 teacher recommendations. I would ask junior year. I would spend time, because you can always, if you have a great teacher senior year and you want to change, you'll be okay. But I'd get out in front, especially if there are common teachers at your school. Lots of people like to ask for those teacher recommendations. Hopefully, as you end junior year, it doesn't need to be a finalized college list, but a good idea of that college list. so you can start to see what are all those essays that hopefully I am spending my summer before senior year getting in front of and starting to write right now. And that's where I see a lot of students senior year, even who were really prepared throughout the process, end up spinning their gears where it's October and there are 6 more schools they want to add to their list. And oh, those have 14 essays associated with them. And then as I start to write these, I want to redo my other 10 essays. And it can just compound really, really quickly. It's nice to have that visualization out there. And it is another piece we're building out for parents, and so excited is that tracker, that personal plan, as we call it. Just being able to visualize the scope of work will help contextualize how much needs to get done over the summer. And maybe should we actually spend the summer not just writing essays, but narrowing that list down a little bit so it doesn't feel like a Herculean effort to get across the finish line? Because the best position I think for students and parents to be is showing back up to school senior year, where they are basically on draft number 2 of everything. They've done draft 1. They can get feedback from teachers. Maybe they hear something from friends. Maybe as they start to fill things out and it gets reality hits them, they want to make some changes, but they're they're past stage 0. They're at least stage 1. They've gotten a first draft. So summer should be a lot of writing over the summer between senior year is what I think the most prepared applicants are doing. And that means as parents, sometimes being good proofreaders, sometimes just being a very good cheerleader and encouraging there, because I know for myself as well, my mom is an excellent writer. She was nice enough to look at my college essays. Man, I did not like her feedback. And that was not that was not any fault of her own. But don't be upset if your child doesn't necessarily want to take things. Rely on hopefully that teacher back at school, that counselor, whoever it is, being able to maybe get across some of the feedback that didn't land as well coming from you.
It's really good advice because that could be very turbulent and turn south so fast if you have a teenager that does not want to hear what mom and dad have to say, especially about something personal like writing. And yeah, it's personal. When they
Yeah,
put in all that effort to write about themselves, it's a personal thing. And we don't think of it that way. We're like, it's just a college essay. It's personal to them. And
yeah,
any criticism, they have a hard time taking it. So I love that you're asking teachers and things for help. And and to get them to actually do it, because the last thing I know so many kids wanna do between junior and senior year in the summertime is write essays. That
yeah.
sounds horrible. Kids don't wanna do that, so I appreciate you being candid and honest about that's our goal, and that's what we need to get our kids to do, and that actually leads to my last question to you is resources. Let's talk about what we can do as parents to help us throughout this entire process. And more specifically, let's talk about your app and what it can do for us. So let's start there. What do you recommend that we do first as parents?
Yes. So one of the first things as parents, and I actually can't believe that I just totally skated over this in the last to your last question on process, because I think in many ways this is much more parent driven than student driven, is finances. And one of the most important pieces, because when it comes time to apply for financial aid, you as a parent are going to have bank statements, tax documents, different pieces actually consolidated. Your financial inputs are going to be critical to the aid that your student receives. Just make sure that one, you are having that conversation proactively with your student, but two, you have your ducks in the row there. And I think there are a lot of great resources. It does not need to, I think there's a huge lack of price transparency. That is one of the biggest issues with college today. The best thing that you can do as a parent is actually starting to explore different net price calculators that are out there. And your the more detailed financial information that you have prepared when you're using something like a net price calculator, the more accurate the outputs will be. So even just going to a specific university website, going to their net price calculator, seeing what it looks like. That is, I think, one of the most valuable starting points. And I think that the federal government will have their own net price calculator as well, where you can just start to get estimates around, okay, once I have what's called an SAI, you'll get that senior year, but at least an estimate, I can kind of get more reasonable pricing assumptions. So that's one resource I would say, but really process that is so critical. But yeah, to take a second to talk about Loper and specifically where parents fit in this process, and we're so excited really for this summer in 2025 is we've always had a free mobile app for students, really been student facing for the product. We have a personalized feed where students react to prompts. See 1,000 different prompts on Loper. This can be academic interests, aspects of their college experience, careers, as we talked about. Those data points power our matching algorithm. So we're recommending schools that are a strong fit for students. And
So
what
when
we're
should
now,
they download Loper?
I think
When's the
Loper's,
optimal time?
I would say, sophomore, as early as like spring of your sophomore year, I think is a great time. Whereas you said earlier, the front end of the college process where you really just want to start thinking, I think it's a great time to use Loper where it's not, hey, this doesn't need to be a finalized list that we're sending your students, but we just want to facilitate introspection and get them asking questions and use a parent. I know parents who will use the app side by side if their student wants them to, and just use it as a conversation starter. And that's actually where a lot of counselors will use our app with students, where using what we call prompts that students are reacting to, say, hey, you said this was interesting to you. Why? What else is interesting to you? Oh, if you like this school, here's another school. So one piece that we're adding to the app, adding back to the app actually is students can just text, email, through any messaging app, send you this auto-generated PDF that has all their interests, their initial school list, so you can view it. And then this summer, we're actually rolling out what's a web-based portal where parents can have a synced account to their student. And that's where we're going to have what we call our application center and our personal plan, but actually that editable spreadsheet that's auto-generated for you that then you can use to track the process and kind of get that first step out in front. Where I've talked to parents who spend 6 hours generating a spreadsheet. I'm like, we can get you those 6 hours back. You got a full-time job. How are you spending 6 hours building this spreadsheet out there? If we can get you that time back, that is so huge for us. And that's where I think Loper as a resource for your junior going into senior year is so valuable. If you didn't download the app, you got a junior, absolutely think it's still valuable right now heading into your senior year. Frankly, your student probably has a better idea of what they're interested in, so is able to better leverage the app, get stronger outputs. But then for that summer, having that spreadsheet that they can refer to, having resources. A lot of those guides that I mentioned on Instagram and TikTok, we're building our own version of those, trying to consolidate some of the best resources that we've seen so that there's just one simple place that you can go as a resource center. And over time, what we want to continue to grow is through that web portal, more, I'll call it learning content for educational content for parents here, where I surveyed a group of 25, North Jersey parents probably 6 months ago, and I think the average was a 3 out of 10 in terms of confidence in the college process. We want to help get parents to a 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 through that spreadsheet, through that learning content. We don't need to make you college experts. We just need to make you a little bit more confident in what can be one of the largest financial investments of your life. And that's something that why I really didn't want to overlook the finances there. And there's a scholarship side and everything that goes into it. But like, this is a huge financial investment. The more confident you are, the more that you feel there's transparency in the process, the better it will feel for you. And I think the better outcome for your student. And unfortunately, this is just not a process that gives you financial transparency unless you are proactive in seeking it.
The whole process is very intimidating. It's
Yeah.
so intimidating. And I hate to say it, but those FAFSA, those financial aid forms that you just touched on, oh my God, like I just the word and I was like,
Yeah, it's
no, don't make me.
and
Like,
it's
it's
like
worse than doing your taxes. I mean, and taxes are bad. It's worse than doing your taxes. It's so
because at least with
horrible.
your taxes, I mean, you could hire the turbo. There's things that can walk you through the process. It just
Yes.
sometimes feel like with FAFSA, there aren't those same good resources. And I actually think just looking at the documents that you need as a parent as early as junior year, spring of your child's junior year, go get the list. It's gonna be the same documents next year when it opens for you. Get a list of the documents you need. Start putting them into Google Drive folder, whatever it is, whatever you use to store files, just so that when it gets that time, it's like, okay, I've got them in one place, and that's like one less thing to stress out about. So even that I think can save you trouble, because the number of parents I know where it's, oh my gosh, it's last day before a deadline that it needs to get submitted if they're going to be eligible for an honors college at this school, and it's 11:30 p.m. and we're still trying to fill this out. Like, you do not want to be that parent.
No, it takes way more time than you think it's going to take, and I'm throwing that out there to parents right now. If double the time that you think it's gonna take, and that's how long it's gonna take you to get through this college application process, it's a lot more. Oh, geez, it's comprehensive, and there's so many different components to it, and it's different than when we were going to college. And I can't stress that enough, because I feel like parents rely on that it's going to be like that, and then they get into this process, and then it's shocking that then they regret, and then there's like, oh my gosh, we should have started this sooner. Oh my gosh, we should have done this. Oh, they're asking for that. I didn't know we were going to need that. This is exactly why we're glad that you're listening to this right now and you're here talking to us. And it sounds like Loper is going to help us more specifically get our kids on the right trajectory of where they want to go to school, what they want to study. And then it sounds like you're rolling out new things that are going to help us stay organized. And like you said, that checklist alone is so valuable if you get that out to parents, because that's what we need. We need something that just says, do this, then do
Yeah.
this, then do this.
Yeah, and that's where, and it comes back to one of the pieces we talked about earlier, kind of on supporting your student versus leading in the process. And we're talking about teenagers. You're going to need to be involved with tracking dates and deadlines. It doesn't matter who. Teenagers are the same as they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. They haven't built up those muscles, those organizational muscles. And what we want to do is build better family alignment and reduce tension, where this is a student driven piece. They're exploring on our mobile app, they're discovering schools, they get what we hope is that kind of like magic moment of finding something that really excites them, whether it's a school, whether it's a major, a job, just something about college that they didn't even know they could ask, letting them drive that conversation. And then in terms of the process and logistics, making it much easier for parents to support, where unfortunately today it's either I need to go ask my child, and that's where the clashing can happen, as we talked about earlier. And where are you in the process is they hear as, oh, I should be doing this even if you didn't say it. Or as a parent being like, do I really need to spend all of this time googling and trying to put together the spreadsheet and figuring this out, and like, by the way, I just got off work and like all I want to do is anything but college. So trying to have that shortcut, and because I really think if there's alignment in the process with students and parents and you're on the same page here, this daunting and intimidating 4-year journey in some ways just becomes that much slower, 25%, 50% less. I think that can be all the difference for families, and hopefully bring us back to just being excited about what's going to be one of the more, and Christina, I'm glad to hear that you have two students who are on the other side of what really is an exciting process for students and parents. And that transition to college is like, it's a symbolic entrance into adulthood, but I think it really is a special maturation time, and having it be more about the excitement than just about the over what can be feel like overwhelming stress in the process is what we want to build towards.
Well, I feel like Looper is going to be an amazing resource for parents, but will it truly be a resource for all of our students? Let's say we have a child that may not be university bound, and they have interests in other things that might be more vocational schools. How would Looper help with somebody like that?
I love that you asked that question. I think one stat that always kind of jars me or grounds me, I think in many ways, only 45% of high school seniors go directly to a 4-year college. So let's put that in perspective. More than 50% of graduating seniors are not going straight to a 4-year college. It was always our vision with the platform of, we want to guide students to the right opportunity after high school, whether that's 4-year college, a 2-year college, vocational school, direct to workforce. And we're so excited in 2025, and where I'll caveat this and say, this is more limited. We're kind of rolling out in specific regions. Indiana is one area where we're rolling this out. Any Indianapolis parents on here, you're going to see apprenticeship options. You're going to see some vocational schools for your student. But we're asking, as students explore within our prompt stack, one, when we onboard them, but then two, as they're exploring on the app, we're asking a lot of questions that can indicate, hey, you might be a good fit for a non-college pathway. And that can be in terms of, Do you want to sit behind a desk all day? Which we'll ask in different ways, but that's a big sign that you might be interested in something else. Just exposing them to other career pathways, like what an HVAC technician is, what earnings looks like for those opportunities. How important are finances in your decision? Like, should you really be thinking about taking out tens, if not $100,000 plus in student debt? So asking those questions are all great indicators. Just degree flexibility and timing. Do you want to spend 4 years? Do you want to spend 6 months? Happier programs on the app as well. So we really want to be inclusive for every type of student out there and not just assume, yes, we are primarily a college search app today. Not every student's going straight to 4-year college. So incorporating those other options, I'd say keep an eye out over the next 12 months for parents across the country, because I think you're going to see a lot more of those opportunities continue to work their way on the app. And what we want to be at Loper is the trusted source where it's hard enough navigating colleges. When you start to talk about non-college vocational school options, it can feel like the Wild West when you're looking through them. We want to be a source of truth and trust for families where if you learn about a pathway or an opportunity on Loper, that's some type of rubber stamp that it's at least viable. There is an opportunity for the right student if they choose to go there. I think especially when you start to look out at college, everyone's kind of scratching their heads of like, is this good? Is this bad? What are my other options? And unfortunately, there's no easy way to search through that.
That's wonderful to hear. And it sounds like the app is continuing to improve and grow. So, I would say it doesn't matter, download it now and let's grow with the app. It's really exciting. If people are resonating with it, where can we get Loper?
All you need to do is go to either the App Store or the Google Play Store, depending on if you're an iOS or an Android user. Just search Loper, Loper. It will show up. If you want to find us on the internet, you can go to www.getloper.com. We've got resources on there as well. We'll have redirect links to download the app, and very soon you're going to see that web portal that I've mentioned in preview that, as we enter kind of mid-May and into the summer, that's going to be live. So we're so excited.
And the app is free. So parents, you do not have any risk for go ahead and downloading. Go check it out right now. And if you haven't downloaded the Impactful Parent app, do it while you're there because
Two
you
for
can.
one.
That's right. The Impactful Parent app is also free, and you can find these podcasts inside the app weekly. So go check both of those out. Go ahead and Sam, give me last words of what do you want parents to know so that they can go and download this amazing resource.
What I want parents to know is if you spend 5, even 10 minutes on the app, you're going to have so much better starting point for all of those different areas that we talked about earlier, where felt like a common theme here was take the first step, have the conversation, try something 2 or 3 times. If you don't even know where to find that starting place, I really think there's no better way to start than Loper. And it really is just 5 or 10 minutes. And I think you're going to have taken that first half step or maybe even full step towards a lot of those pieces that we talked about here, and realize, yes, it's a big process, but really the most important piece is just starting it. And that's where we want to help.
I'm glad you decided to be here today. Begin your Impactful Parent journey by downloading the Impactful Parent app. The Impactful Parent app is free so that you can carry help, tips, and parenting resources right in your pocket. Discover answers to your parenting questions. And the app is free, so go to your phone's app store and discover how you can step up your parenting game and become a more impactful parent. And also remember that this episode is just a small part of what the Impactful Parent offers. Also available are online courses, parent support groups, coaching services, and of course the app. So find out more by going to theimpactfulparent.com. But until next time, you got this, parents. I'm just here to help.